Hello, friends, and welcome to the show. So if you're on YouTube, you notice that the layout's a little bit different. Let me know what you think. If you don't like it, I'll swap back to the way it was, but I feel like this is a little more professional from here on out. I'd like to go with this, but if you think it looks like garbage, I'll go back to the way it was. So let's get started. Luke Radowski, you can't now stop with this idiotic censorship. Name one time in human history when the group of people who were censoring speech and burning books were the good guys. And he takes a trip down memory lane. People burning books, people beating people who were believing thoughts that were not approved by the state. Let's jump over to Secretary of Akkad. Joe Rogan confirms the missing episodes from transferring to Spotify was a demand from Spotify. Episodes include Carl Benjamin, Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, Gavin McInnes, Owen Benjamin, and others. Full list of episodes missing is on a link in Reddit. Let's listen to what Joe Rogan has to say about that.
Because I feel like there's too much corporate involvement. There's too much influence on content.
Anytime anything gets big enough,
right,
you're gonna get shit like that. There's gonna be strings attached. You know.
Yeah, that's the criticism of me being on Spotify.
Yeah, how's that been? How's the move been?
They don't give a fuck, man.
They don't care what you do?
They haven't given me a hard time at all. There's a few episodes they didn't want on their platform that I was like, okay, I don't care. Uh-huh. But other than that, like in terms of what I do in the future, like the big test was having Alex Jones on.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people
all right,
like,
let's see how this relationship really goes.
A lot of people are like, they're telling Joe Rogan what he can do, what he can't do. I'm like, they're not. And let's show you. Alex Jones and Tim Dillon was like one of my favorite podcasts I've ever done.
I love Tim.
So they are, by basically requiring you to not transfer episodes over, they are censoring you. They are silencing your voice. They're silencing your work that you have done. And it's kind of disgusting. Apparently, all it takes is $100 million for Joe Rogan to no longer be pro-free speech. He's pro-censorship, I guess, when $100 million is thrown in his direction. And what's more disturbing is he lied about it. He said he would never lie to his fans. He would never lie to his supporters. Yet it turns out he did. And what's even more outrageous is the way he lied. He said there was technical difficulties. I would have been much more okay with him just saying, hey, look, we're just dealing with some things with Spotify. We'll see if we can get this worked out. And if it turns out that Spotify did end up censoring those episodes and then he comes clean about it, okay, well, it turns out, we're having issues with Spotify. But he said it was a technical issue and that the episodes were just lost. But it turns out that Spotify censored him. And then he said, okay, I don't have a problem with that because still, please pay me my $100 million. So apparently Joe Rogan does have a price of where he's willing to compromise on his values. And it's very telling. And it kind of sucks because I listen to Joe Rogan a lot. I like a lot of his older stuff because it's very edgy. And now that he's on Spotify, it has definitely gotten very, very, I'm not going to be like, he's neutered now that he's on Spotify, but it's very different than what it was when it was just like him in the early 2010s. Man, that stuff was just raw and kind of bananas. I recommend you to go back in time and look at that because it was a different Joe Rogan than the Joe Rogan today. And maybe it's because Spotify did basically say, hey, we're going to put left and right boundaries on what's going on. That's probably why he had to fact check every single thing that Alex Jones was spitting out. That way he didn't get in trouble by Spotify because Spotify apparently is censoring Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan's okay with it because he's cashing that fat check. And I kind of can't blame him because $100 million is a lot of money. That's borderline FU money. Let's jump over to Jack Murphy. Corporations doing political dirty work, outrageous fascism. YouTube deletes all videos of President Trump's CPAC speech, suspends RSBN for 2 weeks. Big Tech is continuing to blacklist Donald Trump, even blocking content of the former president posted by users who are not associated with him. Video of Trump's recent Conservative Political Action Committee speech was taken down by YouTube on Thursday after the video platform said it violated their misinformation guidelines. The video posted by the Right Side Broadcasting Network had garnered nearly 4 million views prior to its removal. RBSN says they were told the video would not have been removed if they had provided contrasting viewpoints to Trump's election fraud claims, but they said they refused to do so. It's worth noting that according to YouTube's terms, our video of Trump's CPAC speech would have been allowed to stay up had we provided countervailing viewpoints. Essentially, we would have had to go on air and say everything Trump just said about election fraud is not true. We won't censor President Trump or push back against things he says that, quite frankly, we agree with. YouTube, which is owned by Google, said in a statement that the video's removal was consistent with their guidelines. And I'll get to basically more Google censorship here in a moment. We enforce our community guidelines consistently, regardless of the speaker or political leaning. That is not true. That is not true, because they don't censor Joe Biden when he says there was no vaccine plan. They don't censor Hillary Clinton when she said that the election was stolen from her. They don't. It only cuts one way. In accordance with our established presidential election integrity policy, which prohibits content uploaded after the safe harbor deadline claiming widespread fraud changed the outcome of the 2020 U.S. presidential election, we removed this video from Right Side Broadcasting Network. Meanwhile, Trump itself continues to be banned from their site. On Thursday, during an event hosted by the Atlantic Council, YouTube CEO Susan, I can't pronounce her last name, said that Trump's suspended YouTube account will be restored when the risk of violence decreases. So it's just more blue Anon stuff. So it's never going to happen, because there's always going to be more threats of violence. They're going to say, oh, QAnon says Trump is going to basically become president again on July 4th, or Trump's going to be president again on whatever other federal holiday, or some obscure date because something happened 5,000 years ago, and basically the compass and the stars read out to say that Trump shall be the president. It doesn't make any sense. And this sort of just, oh my God, this is Mussolini's wet dream. Meanwhile, Trump himself continues to be banned from the site. I already said that. YouTube will rely on a mix of indicators to assess the level of violence, including statements by the government officials, the readiness level of law enforcement, and any violent rhetoric YouTube may observe on its own platform. They said they won't lift Trump's ban this week due to reported threats against the U.S. Capitol, saying it's pretty clear right now that there is still an elevated risk of violence. No, there's not. It's just blue Anon conspiracy theories, because they say that there's threats of violence and then nothing happens. They're just doing it to have they want more troops in Washington, D.C. than they want in the Middle East. They want Washington, D.C. to look like the Iraq green zone, and it's bananas. People say Trump was a fascist. They say he was an authoritarian. Did Trump use the military oh my goodness, did he use martial law? Did he implement the Insurrection Act? Did he use thousands of National Guard troops to basically disband the violent protest or the violent riots that had occurred in 2020? No, when he used basically small surgical federal troops, like surgical teams, to basically arrest people trying to burn down a federal courthouse, they were called stormtroopers. They were called Nazis. They were called whatever you want to call them. That was seen as fascism, authoritarianism, and what have you. And it was just insane. This double standard of what Joe Biden is doing is good and what Trump was doing was bad. Apparently, people have really bad memories. So jumping to another example of Google just censoring things. Google and Urban Dictionary team up to censor blue Anon, a term describing liberal conspiracy theories. Google and Urban Dictionary recently censored references to blue Anon, a term used to describe liberal conspiracy theories. A play on the word QAnon, which has been associated with right-wing conspiracies. Blue Anon was recently popularized by media personalities such as conservative commentary. I said it before Jack Posobiec. I'm sorry. I've said it way before him. I apologize, but it's true. The term became popular enough that it trended on Twitter and was eventually added to Urban Dictionary. Urban Dictionary defined blue Anon as a loosely organized network of Democrat voters, politicians, and media personalities who spread left-wing conspiracy theories, including the Jussie Smollett hoax, the theory that Russian disinformation helped former President Donald Trump win the 2016 election, and the belief that Justice Brett Kavanaugh is guilty of sexually harassing multiple women. Blue Anon adherents fervently believe that right-wing extremists are going to storm the Capitol Hill any day now and remove lawmakers from office, hence the need for deployment of thousands of National Guard stationed at the U.S. Capitol. Shortly after the term was added to Urban Dictionary, the website removed it, and a Google search brings up nothing on the term other than brand name ski gear. Google mostly includes results from the shop selling ski and snowboard gear when the term Blue Anon is typed into search query. The term does result in more related listings when Blue Anon Urban Dictionary is typed into a search bar. This is bananas. So now they're censoring right-wing speech. It's not even right-wing speech. They're now just censoring speech in general. So they're not going to censor QAnon. So when CNN basically makes QAnon mainstream, right? So I've said this dozens of times at this point. I never actually heard of QAnon until CNN and MSNBC basically pushed QAnon into the mainstream. Allow them to basically be obscure and in the corner and basically have it just be your sexless cousin in the corner who's a loser and can't really accomplish anything. Allow them to be the QAnon conspiracy theorists. But when you push it into the mainstream, you're going to have more and more people believe in QAnon, and it's the mainstream media's fault. It's Google's fault. They're pushing the QAnon conspiracy theories. Every time you Google QAnon, it's storming the Capitol because of Democrat lawmakers involved in child sex trafficking. But it doesn't help that a lot of Democrat leaders and politicians were involved with Jeffrey Epstein, were involved with those who were abusing women. So every conspiracy theory is kind of founded in a kernel of truth. So while there may not be snake or reptilian people who eat the adrenochrome of basically scared children, I don't know it because it's crazy. But it does have a basis in reality. There are Democrat lawmakers who abuse children. There are Democrat lawmakers who are involved with Jeffrey Epstein. So what exactly is wrong with basically joking and saying, and it's not even being a serious thing. They're not saying Blue Anon is a legitimate conspiracy theory. It's just an Urban Dictionary thing, basically saying, hey, you have these crazy Democrats basically saying, oh yeah, Russian disinformation got Trump elected. Well, that's not true because all of that stuff was fake. If anything, Hillary Clinton and the DNC conspired with Russia to produce that information, that dirt, to say that Trump colluded with Russia, right? Because that's who she paid. That's who she worked with. And it's just crazy on so many levels that now they're even censoring speech. It's not even speech. They're censoring words. They're saying this word shall not be used online. This word shall not be used to basically refer to conspiracy theorists on the wrong side of the aisle, or excuse me, on the right side of the aisle, because the right side is the left side. So that's going to be it for now, friends. I'll post another video up here in a couple hours. I'll see you all in a bit. Have a good one. Bye.